Welcome in this morning to our employee recognition event. Glad to have you all here on this misty, atmospheric Nebraska fall morning. My name is Rick Alloway. I'm an associate professor in the College of Journalism and Mass Communications. It's my great honor to join you this morning for this celebration of service to the university. And let's start with a thanks for the service provided by Nebraska Steel, the university's first steel drum band. Let's have them come out and take a round of applause. These are undergraduate and graduate percussion majors in the Glenn Korff School of Music and the Hickson Lied College of Fine and Performing Arts. They've been together just a short while. In fact, Lewis tells me they did their first formal concert just in April. They're under the able direction of Dr. Dave Hall, and this morning under the direction of Lewis Raymond Kolker. So congratulations on your success here. Thank you very much for coming today. So we're here this morning to pay tribute to the contributions of dozens of dedicated people, to recognize unselfish behavior and tireless commitment to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. We're here to say thank you for helping to make the university a better place, for making a positive difference in the lives of quite literally thousands of students, parents, visitors, guests, and your fellow employees. But we're also here today to commemorate the passing of time. Time is a major player on a university campus. It leaves its mark on nearly every facet of our daily lives. It controls our actions, even our vocabulary. We name our weeks. The final week of class used to be known as Dead Week, though more recently it's adopted its numerical rank order. The week after that is Finals Week. Some students refer to the first week of the semester as Syllabus Week. Students and teachers measure their days in different units, depending whether it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday. And then, of course, there's Saturday and Sunday when any uniform standard of time measurement goes out the window and many campus residents are up at the crack of noon. Commuter students keep track of their time via the metric system, although on campus the meter of choice is one which must be fed periodically to avoid a parking ticket. And the faculty version of that type of time unit is measured by how long one must circle in the parking lot before somebody backs out. There are time tests to take and grade, time sheets to fill out online, timed backups of our computers, or downtime due to the latest virus, timeouts and half times in Husker games, and in another year of budgetary belt tightening, we've all been forced to do an even better job of time and money management. So yes, we can be consumed with the clock and with the calendar. But then I remember one of my favorite James Taylor songs that begins with a simple, but I think profound statement on how to deal with all of this. James sings, "The secret of life is enjoying the passage of time." Well, if that's true, and I think it is, then we should have a contented bunch of employees gathered here this morning in Kimball Hall because you've witnessed the passing of a lot of time in your years of service, and they've been eventful years at that. So for the next few minutes, allow me to lead you on a stroll down short-term memory lane as we look back on the events of the years in which you started your service here at the University of Nebraska. So let's begin just a few years back as we honor those among us who are celebrating their 5-year employment anniversaries this year. So we begin in the not too distant past, 2013, still fresh in most of our memories. Barack Obama took the oath of office for the second time in January. He and we would live through a violent start to his second term. April was a particularly deadly month. On the 15th, 2 bombs exploded near the finish line of the Boston Marathon, killing 3, injuring more than 250, and leading to a massive manhunt. And just 2 days later, an explosion at a Texas fertilizer plant claimed 15 lives. A month later, an EF5 tornado tore through Oklahoma, leaving 25 confirmed fatalities in its wake. The news was filled with names like Edward Snowden, charged with espionage and theft of government property for having leaked government documents, or George Zimmerman found not guilty in the 2012 death of Trayvon Martin, or PFC Bradley Manning convicted on 20 counts of leaking information and espionage, and gangster James Whitey Bulger convicted of multiple counts of racketeering. Argo won the Best Picture in the Academy Awards that year with Jennifer Lawrence and Daniel Day-Lewis winning in the Best Acting categories. The group Fun won the Best New Artist Award at the Grammys, along with Best Song for We Are Young. while Gautier won Best Record for Somebody That I Used to Know. And some of the folks that we used to know left us that year, like Nelson Mandela, musicians Lou Reed, Ray Manzarek, Van Cliburn, movie critic Roger Ebert, astronaut Scott Carpenter, and actors Peter O'Toole, James Gandolfini, Paul Walker, and Corey Monteith. On campus, the Princeton Review ranked UNL among the nation's best value colleges that year. The School of Music received an $8 million endowment from Glenn Korff, a UNL chemistry alum who had a love of the arts. Tim Miles finished his first season as men's basketball coach with the promise of a new place to play as the Pinnacle Bank Arena in the Haymarket opened in August of that year. Meanwhile, work continued on an addition to the Knoll Residential Center called University Suites. The facility opened to students in the fall semester. Bo Pelini's football team finished the season 9-4, capped by a New Year's Day victory over Georgia in the Gator Bowl. But the most notable football play of that year might have occurred during the spring game on April 6th, when 7-year-old pediatric cancer patient Jack Hoffman entered the game early in the fourth quarter and, wearing a jersey with the number of his Husker team friend Rex Burkhead, ran for a 69-yard touchdown to a standing ovation. That play went on to win the best moment of the year at the ESPN ESPY Awards later in 2013. And by the way, Jack is currently in remission, and he turns 13 tomorrow. The Mars Curiosity rover spent 2013 sending data back and information about the mysterious red planet, some of which gave new insight into the possibility of life there. And NASA launched an additional Mars probe that year to explore how hospitable the planet's atmosphere might be. Fortunately, our first group of honored employees who started their UNL careers in 2013 didn't have to travel nearly as far to find a hospitable atmosphere. They found it right here. And let's ask our 5-year honorees to stand at this time so we can thank you for your service. Congratulations. Two 2008 was a year of political firsts. America elected an African-American president. It was the year of financial chaos. The collapse of the investment bank Bear Stearns signaled the start of a global financial crisis. It was a year of athletic milestones. In the Summer Olympic Games in Beijing, Michael Phelps won a record 8 gold medals. Usain Bolt became the fastest man on earth, and Danica Patrick became the first woman to win an IndyCar race when she crossed the finish line first in the Indy Japan 300. It was a roller coaster year in terms of gas prices, which peaked at over $4 a gallon in July, but dropped to just under $2 by the end of the year. And Sarah Palin and Tina Fey made us think we were seeing double on Saturday Night Live. It was a year of scandalous headlines. Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich was arrested and charged with crimes relating to the filling of Barack Obama's Senate seat. Bernie Madoff was arrested and charged with securities fraud for his role in a $50 million Ponzi scheme, prompting comedian Robin Williams to quip, "His name is Madoff. Was the name not a clue?" It was a year of international change. Cuba's Fidel Castro announced he was stepping down as the ruler of his country. Bhutan became a democratic country, and the world gained a new country when Kosovo declared its independence from Serbia. It was a weird weather year. 78,000 people died in a cyclone in Myanmar, 68,000 died in an earthquake in China, and snow fell in Baghdad for the first time in recent history, which sounds like a setup for a joke, but I'm not going to go there this morning. It was the year we lost Charlton Heston, Bo Diddley, Yves Saint Laurent, William F. Buckley, chess master Bobby Fischer, the young man who showed us what the Joker looked like, Heath Ledger, and a man who told us what he thought 2001 would look like, Arthur C. Clarke. On the UNL campus, a record crowd attended the annual spring game to get a look at the 2008 football team and to talk about its new head coach, Bo Pelini. On the university's East Campus, the new International Quilt Study Center and Museum opened to rave reviews, and a brand new campus took shape on the former state fairgrounds as university officials approved Innovation Park. Michelle Obama and Chelsea Clinton visited the UNL campus, as did Nebraska's homegrown astronaut Clayton Anderson, who told the campus about his love affair with the stars. And in 2008, another group of stars began their love affair with UNL. Let's ask our next group of honored employees, our 10-year honorees, to stand and let us thank you for your service. Congratulations. 2003 was the year of shock and awe. In Baghdad, pre-dawn attacks by that name signaled the start of Operation Iraqi Freedom, and that country's leader, Saddam Hussein, was captured later that year, hiding in a hole in the ground. There was shock and awe of a different nature closer to home, as Americans watched in horror as the space shuttle Columbia exploded upon re-entering Earth's atmosphere, killing all 7 astronauts on board. In Nebraska, 4-year-old Brendan Gonzalez went missing from his home in Plattsmouth. He was never found. His father was eventually charged in his murder. A few states to the west, there was a happier outcome for another missing child. Elizabeth Smart, kidnapped and held hostage for 9 years, was reunited with her family. It was a year of intersection of geography and show business. The musical Chicago won the Academy Award for Best Picture, while out west, California elected a showbiz governor, a Terminator by the name of Arnold. Elsewhere in showbiz, Norah Jones owned the Grammy Awards, winning 5 that year, including Best Record, Best Album, and Best New Artist. While that same year, the recording industry started an all-out campaign to prevent folks from illegally downloading songs like hers on the internet. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, the 5th book in the series, worked its magic in the bookstores, and The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, was king at the movie box office. It was the year we lost both Johnny Cash and June Carter Cash, as well as Katharine Hepburn, Bob Hope and Gregory Hines, Gregory Peck, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, George Plimpton and John Ritter, and Mr. Rogers. The gentle Fred Rogers left us that year. Here on the UNL campus, it was the year we felt the loss of the longtime dean of the College of Journalism and Mass Communications, our friend and colleague Neil Koppel. Nebraska's longtime House of Representatives member Doug Beereiter stepped down after 25 years of service, and the state entered its 4th year of a withering drought. On campus, 2003 was the last year of the Frank Solich era for Big Red football, and it was also a year of firsts, the first year for the UNL Roadshow and the Student Advisory Board. Half a world away, scientists in China discovered the first dinosaur fossil with 4 wings in 2003. It was the year the Hubble telescope detected the oldest known planet, which scientists named, appropriately, Methuselah. It was thought to be over 12.7 billion years old, which should give some perspective to our next group of honored employees this morning. On those days when you feel like you've been here forever, you only have 12,699,999,985 years to go. But at this time, let's ask all of our 15-year recipients to stand so we can congratulate them. "1998 was a year of landmarks. The world's largest suspension bridge opened in Japan. Volkswagen introduced a new version of the classic Bug, and Mark McGwire hit 70 home runs for the St. Louis Cardinals, breaking the single-season record. It was a tough year for natural disasters. Tornadoes in Florida took 38 lives. A hurricane named Mitch killed at least 10,000 people. An earthquake in Afghanistan killed 3,000 more. Ice storms stranded thousands without power in the Northeast, while El Nino disrupted weather patterns worldwide. Even the Titanic sunk again that year, though this time it was on the silver screen. Here at UNL, things were looking up. Nebraska won the Collegiate Computer Programming Regional and qualified for the World Finals. The university's math department was honored at a visit to the White House. $125 million Othmar gift would begin to support chemical engineering, libraries expansion, and technology upgrades. And as things looked way up, work continued on the new skyboxes on the west side of Memorial Stadium. The year had started on a high note for the Husker football team as they capped the 1997 season with another national championship for Tom Osborne in his last game as Nebraska's head coach. Nebraska Governor Ben Nelson declared January Tom Osborne Month to pay tribute to the outgoing coach, but we'll pay tribute today to the batch of honored employees who came to work here in 1998. We'd like to ask our 20-year employees to stand so we can recognize your dedication. Thank you. Congratulations. In 1993, we had a new president in Washington named Clinton, and in Lincoln, we began the search for a new president for the university as Martin Massengale announced he was stepping down. It was a big year for renovation on the campus. Morrill Hall reopened after a much-needed upgrade. A new wing of CBA opened as the main portion of the building was closed for remodeling. Some fall classes were held in a former fast food Mexican restaurant at 12th and R, a building students quickly dubbed Taco Hall. Construction continued on the new Beatles Center, though the summer rain slowed the pace a bit. The 80-year-old 10th Street Viaduct came down. It was supposed to. And Section 14 of Memorial Stadium came down. It wasn't supposed to. Elsewhere on campus, Chancellor Graham Spanier announced plans to expand the Nebraska Union, including a vast green space on the north side where cars had once parked, thus reworking the lyrics to the song Big Yellow Taxi to "They take parking lot and put up a paradise." Chancellor also pushed for free email accounts for students, faculty, and staff, arguing it would radically change the way the university does business. Unless, of course, recipients inadvertently clicked that reply all on the subject line, or the subject line was something like hilarious cat video, in which case the university slows to no business at all. On the medical front, the university's medical center was chosen as a testing site for new HIV drugs, and First Lady Hillary Clinton visited the Lead Center for a conference on healthcare. Princeton professor Toni Morrison became the first African American to win the Nobel Prize for Literature. Nelson Mandela and F.W. de Klerk shared the Nobel Peace Prize for their efforts to dismantle apartheid in South Africa. We lost actress Audrey Hepburn, pitcher Don Drysdale, tennis star Arthur Ashe, former First Lady Pat Nixon, polio vaccine pioneer Albert Sabin, trumpet master Dizzy Gillespie, and actress Helen Hayes that year. Cheers ended a lengthy run on the small screen, while in theaters, thanks to the magic of computer animation, a T-Rex and a pack of hungry velociraptors ran amok again after 65 million years in Steven Spielberg's Jurassic Park. Not quite ready for dinosaur status yet. Our next batch of honorees. Let's have our 25-year employees stand and let us thank you for your recognition, for your dedication to the university. 1988, the minimum wage was a whopping $3.36 an hour. You could buy a stamp for 25 cents or a new B-2 stealth bomber for just $500 million. George Bush the elder was elected president. The space shuttle program was on again after a 32-month shutdown resulting from the 1986 Challenger explosion. On the ground, the worst fire ever in a U.S. national park ravaged 1.38 million acres in Yellowstone. It was the year a new study linked cholesterol to heart attacks, at the same time that Pontillo's Pizzeria at 13th and Q was bulldozed to make way for a park. Coincidence? I think not. Arguments got as heated as spent fuel rods that year over the proposed 5-state radioactive waste compact, and only slightly less heated were Governor Kay Orr's signing into law the motorcycle helmet bill. The Soviets pulled out of Afghanistan about the same time McDonald's was pulling into Belgrade, the first set of golden arches in a communist country. And E.T. phoned home to the tune of $11 million in advance orders for copies of their video cassette, making it the all-time video sales leader. We lost songwriter Irving Berlin that year, along with singer Roy Orbison, ballet company leader Robert Joffrey. Jerry Seinfeld came to Lincoln for a show, and the Secretary of State announced the newest Trident submarine would be named the USS Nebraska, causing generations of admirals in the Nebraska Navy to beam with pride. And still beaming after 30 years of diligent service to the university, our next batch of honorees, let's have our 30-year employees stand and let you acknowledge their service to the university. Nebraska's new governor, Bob Kerrey, was hailed as a rising star in 1983, while new ski slopes were rising along the interstate between Lincoln and Omaha. Popcorn was going fancy that year, including flavors like pina colada and grape. While at Andy's, which was the happening place for UNL students, you could get a sloppy Joe, fries, and a drink for $1. The final episode of MASH aired to record viewing audiences, while Deborah Winger, Shirley MacLaine, and Jack Nicholson traveled to Lincoln to film Terms of Endearment. Chicago had its first African-American mayor, NASA put the first African-American astronaut into space, and Vanessa Williams became the first African-American to be crowned Miss America. On campus, the men's gymnastics team showed their moves by winning a 5th straight NCAA national championship, and computer science students, disgruntled over crowded computer labs, tried a move of their own, holding a sit-in at Chancellor Massengale's office. Cabbage Patch dolls were the hot holiday gift item. Kids were swapping their Smurf lunch boxes for ones featuring the Return of the Jedi, no doubt a reaction to President Reagan's proposal for the Star Wars defense plan. Singer Karen Carpenter died that year, along with playwright Tennessee Williams, boxing champ Jack Dempsey, musicians Eubie Blake and Muddy Waters, composer Ira Gershwin, and football legend Paul Bear Bryant. Michael Jackson's Thriller was on top of the album charts, while on Broadway, audiences were thrilled by the cast of A Chorus Line, which topped a record 3,389th consecutive performance. But that's nothing compared to the 35 years of continuous performance from our next group of honored employees. Let's have them stand and thank you for 35 years of service. "1978 was an eclectic year in pop culture. Hawaii Five-0 was renewed for an 11th season on CBS. Grease became the largest grossing movie musical in history, fueled by the Bee Gees' rhythmic soundtrack and John Travolta's hair. Woody Allen's Annie Hall won 4 Oscars. Superman flew into theaters as the most expensive movie ever made. The first American-made Volkswagen rolled off the assembly line that year, and the Ewings of South Fork made their debut on Dallas. Meanwhile, the ag community was struggling. Farmers across the country went on strike, and in Lincoln, area farmers staged a mock funeral to greet Ag Secretary Berglund on his arrival. At UNL, an enterprising computer science student, funded by a $13,000 grant from the National Science Foundation, built a microcomputer the size of a desk drawer. Iranian students were joined by faculty and other students in a march to protest the Shah of Iran. The Lincoln City Council approved funds for construction of Lincoln's first 3 skywalks. Gasohol made its first appearance at 70 cents a gallon. On campus, enrollment topped 21,000 for the first time. The university's administration considered photo ID cards. Campus police expanded their shifts to cover all 24 hours. Tuition increased to $22.50 a credit hour, almost equaling the cost of a student season football ticket, which was a steal at $25. But even at $15 more, the cost would still have only been $1 for every year of service logged by our next group of distinguished employees. Let's have our 40-year colleagues stand and let us thank you for your service. Congratulations all. At this point in the program, I would like to invite the 45 and 50-year honorees to follow the ushers and make their way backstage. We're extremely proud of our employees, and we want to share with you a few of the personal stories from honorees from each decade. Please direct your attention to the screen for the next few minutes.
I chair the Department of Civil Engineering at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and I'm a professor of structural engineering in the department. My research focuses on transportation infrastructure, specifically bridges, and how to make the infrastructure last longer and be as safe as possible. So when the university imploded Catherine Pound, we were able to gather data from the buildings, from adjacent sites while the implosions were happening. And that data set is extremely unique, not only within Nebraska, but across the country and around the world. And the information that we've developed and will provide is going to be used by many people to make the world a better place to live. Being a part of the Big Ten is a huge reason why I chose to come to Nebraska. It's a huge reason why we're attracting such amazing young women and men to be faculty here, and why we're attracting such amazing students from all over the world to be part of this great experience that is University of Nebraska-Lincoln.
My job is Associate Registrar at the Sheldon Museum of Art. So that means I'm responsible for maintaining the database, making sure all the works of art are where they should be. Nebraska weather takes its toll on outdoor painted works, and we just recently had Torn Notebook repainted, which is great because it's such a landmark, not just for the university, but for the city. And so now it's bright and fresh. It means the metal has been protected, and it looks great for at least another 10 years, and then we'll paint it again. I think what really has kept me here is the fact that I'm working with such a great group of people who are smart and dedicated, and just it's fun to be part of the team that we are here at the Sheldon.
So I am the professor of communication studies and a Willa Cather professor, and that I am the chair of the department. When I came to interview here, I wasn't really sure. I didn't know anything about Nebraska. I almost had to look it up on the map. And I came here, and what I found was a really special place. Everybody I met really cared about students, cared about teaching, cared about research. And to me, all of those parts of my career have been a big package. I think the biggest change for me has been when we went to the Big Ten. It was a surprise, and I have a Big Ten PhD out of Minnesota, so I knew what that meant. And for me, it set the place on fire as a researcher, and expectations rose, and excitement about the scholarly mission of the university rose at the same time. And so more resources and more oomph was put into the research mission, and to me that was really important.
My job is working in the student involvement office and working with students on East Campus to provide programs and services for our student organizations. I love working with students. I love planning events and seeing them succeed, build relationships, develop skills that will go way beyond their time at the university. The Culture Center that was located on our street. I actually was a student here when the university purchased that facility, and was also able to manage that facility for 10 years. And so now it's gone, and that glass is actually a stained glass that was taken from the window that the staff saved and gave to me. So it means a lot. A student came to me with a vision of bringing Larry the Cable Guy to campus for a benefit for the Team Jack Foundation, and we made that event happen, and over $200,000 was raised. So that was probably one of the most notable, significant accomplishments I think that I've had.
When I first started here, our students were more active in doing things, snowball fights, streaking. The year we had the Super Regional here with Texas, we had a streaker across the baseball field with 8,000 fans watching.
Somebody popped out of the stands, and now he has leaped onto the berm.
Over the years, it's mellowed out quite a bit. Students aren't quite active in those kinds of activities.
How we doing? Good. How's it going?
I enjoy talking to people, meeting with them, and making sure that their events go right. Anything we can do to help them out is just, that's what I enjoy.
My job at Nebraska has been as a professor of educational psychology. I've been interested forever in how to improve teaching and learning. When I started to the university, which I did as a 17-year-old, way back when, I think there were 8,000 students. I think it was my 50th birthday, and my students decided, hey, we have to celebrate that. So they came bringing in a cake with 50 candles on it. That was so many candles that it set off the fire alarm. Now, I don't know what the heck it would do. It probably would call out the fire department and everything else. It's just the great people, the staff, the faculty, the students. They come from everywhere, every part of the world, every part of Nebraska. That's a great thing. I run across former students all the time in all kinds of places, so that's a great feeling.
5 years, what a ride. I can't wait for the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 50.
It's been 10 years, which seems like the blink of an eye.
When I came to Nebraska 20 years ago, I never dreamed I'd live in Nebraska longer than anywhere else I've stayed in my life, and I am delighted to make my home here.
Wouldn't trade my 30 years of service to be anywhere else in the country. And I think that there are very promising days ahead.
I enjoy working with university people the past 40 years. That's what's kept me here all this time.
50 years has gone by like a flash. I just have the warmest feelings for having spent that at the University of Nebraska.
At this point in the program, we'll begin our recognition of our longest-serving colleagues, beginning with those whose careers started 45 years ago in 1973, which was another year of budget cuts in state government and on campus, this time due to an oil crunch. That stopped some land acquisition plans by both UNL and UNO, stalled on outpatient clinic the medical center in Omaha had planned, and led to conservation practices on campus like lowering thermostats from 73 to 70 during the winter months and recycling phone books. Despite the gloomy economy, enrollment was strong, 20,553 students at UNL, even though they had to pay an increase in tuition that brought it up to a whopping $18 an hour. The Apollo 9 space capsule landed in front of Morrill Hall for a multi-year stay. Bell bottoms were everywhere on campus, and the first women were allowed to join ROTC. A ceasefire was declared in Vietnam. Chancellor James Zumberg canceled classes in observance, though only 200 folks showed up at a peace convocation. The Sears Tower became the tallest building in America, while a towering legal decision in Roe v. Wade ruled unconstitutional all state laws prohibiting abortion in the first trimester. It was the first year the airlines began screening passengers, and the fallout from the Watergate scandal would lead to the resignations of 4 of Richard Nixon's top aides and to a Pulitzer Prize in journalism for the Washington Post. In those unsettled times, our next group of honored employees began what would become a 45-year run of service at this university. At this point, please welcome to the stage Chancellor Ronnie Green to help with the presentations of the recognition to these folks. As we call each of your names, please come to the stage and accept your recognition award and have your photo taken with Chancellor Green. We begin with Douglas Carlson, Production Support Manager of University Television. He went from his first job on the NET transmissions team to now leading the production services group responsible for the technical aspects of NET productions. He's an innovator, a collaborator, and a creative problem solver who has helped to make NET an industry leader. Congratulations. Kathleen Johnson is a professor of university libraries. She co-authored a textbook on teaching literary research. She is the former chair of the executive committee of the American Library Association. Congratulations. Leanne Messing is the office supervisor in English. According to Chair Marco Abel, quote, "For years it's been a running joke, but really an open secret, that Leanne is the real boss of the English department." Kenneth Nickerson, Professor of Biological Sciences, President of the UNL Faculty Senate in 2014-15. Many years ago, Ken helped figure out why some center pivot irrigation systems made of stainless steel collapsed of their own weight after only a year or two. Turned out the culprit was microbial corrosion carried by a fascinating group of bacteria called sulfate-reducing bacteria. Congratulations on your service. Maggie Van Diest is Senior Accounting Associate at the University Libraries. Maggie's known for her excellent organizational skills, her uplifting nature, and her ability to coax budget numbers, cost objects, and year-end projections out of Excel files and reams of financial records. She is the recipient of several awards, including UNL Staff Kudos, Effective Efficient Value-Added Cost Savings Award, and the library's Staff Excellence Award. Congratulations. Jane Wemhoff was assistant manager of Cather Dining for University Housing. She retired in December of 2017. She earned a 2017-18 Parents Recognition Award. She was a mentor to many employees and students. She always set high expectations and helped them grow to be the best. Congratulations. We also want to recognize some 45-year recipients who were unable to join us this morning. Danny Laidley, Director of the Mary Reapma Ross Media Arts Center. Lee Peshik, Ag Research Technician for U.S. Meat Animal Research Center. Helen Sexton, Staff Assistant in Political Science. Richard Shaw, Ag Research Technician at the U.S. Meat Animal Research Center. And Anthony Starris, the George Holmes Distinguished Professor of Physics. Let's thank them for their service as well. Our celebration of employee service concludes by honoring our colleagues whose careers here started 50 years ago in 1968. Considered by many a difficult year in American history, it was the year Lyndon Johnson announced he would neither seek nor accept the nomination for another term in office. It was the year Martin Luther King was assassinated in Memphis, and Bobby Kennedy was shot and killed following a campaign rally in California. 50,000 people marched in Washington, D.C. to plead for deliverance from poverty and discrimination, and the Democratic National Convention in Chicago turned violent in front of a national television audience. The Navy ship USS Pueblo was seized in the Sea of Japan by North Korean patrol boats, and Vietnamese Reds launched the Tet Offensive. There were bright spots, though. Apollo 8 orbited the moon 10 times, yielding some of the most spectacular photos ever taken of the Earth and the moon. The civil rights measure became law in the U.S. The pop art movement was flourishing. Bob Gibson set a World Series record with 17 strikeouts in the series opener. On campus, Old Father Hall and Hamilton Hall were completed as the university's first high-rise office buildings. If you had $3.50, you could have heard Simon and Garfunkel perform at Pershing Auditorium. The 15th Street malls and fountains were completed that year, and a 20-year plan called for the university to create a pedestrian campus with shuttle bus service. But what our next honored group of employees could not have known that year was that they were embarking on their own 50-year plan. So we're so glad they stuck it out, and that some of them could be here with us today to accept your recognition. We'll ask our following employees celebrating 50 years of service to come to the stage and receive your awards from Chancellor Green. Edward Becker, Professor of Philosophy, teaches graduate courses in epistemology and the philosophy of language, and recently published a book on the philosophy of W.V. Quine. Congratulations. Roger Bruning, Emeritus Professor, Educational Psychology, earned each of his degrees from UNL and is the Fellow of the American Psychological Association. The focus of his career has been on how to improve teaching and learning. Congratulations, Roger. Okay, I want to talk. We're going to have each of our awardees remain on stage for a moment. Alan Peterson is the Bessie Professor of Mathematics. He has authored or co-authored 6 textbooks and gave a speech at UNL on the same day in 1968 that Bobby Kennedy was speaking in the Coliseum. Congratulations. And Brett Ratcliffe, Professor of Entomology, earned each of his degrees from UNL. He is a professor and curator at the University of Nebraska State Museum. In 2018, he published a new book about 62 species and 2 subspecies of the dynastic scarab beetle that are found in the U.S., including Guam and Canada. Congratulations, sir. Unable to be with us to accept the recognition this morning is Jacqueline Wilkin, Administrative Coordinator in the Athletic Medicine Office. Let's congratulate her for her service as well. You want to talk? At this point, we'll turn it over to Chancellor Green, who would like to have a few words with our honorees.
Can you imagine 250 years collectively of the 4 gentlemen on the stage, plus Jackie? Let's give them another big round of applause for their service. And I understand that the tradition at the university a number of years ago was that each of the 50-year service honorees had the opportunity to say something. So we're going to have a chance to visit with them very informally this morning in fun and have an opportunity to hear from them a little bit about some of their thoughts about the university. And we'll start with Dr. Becker, who, as you heard, is in the Department of Philosophy, where he's had a 50-year career in epistemology, still teaches graduate courses, published a book as recently as just the last few years, so he obviously has continued to be productive as all four of these individuals have. And Dr. Becker, might just ask you, over that 50 years of time, what's been the secret to your success and continuing to be productive, continuing to work with students? Any changes in students you may have seen over that period?
Two questions. What's made me keep at it is because I love the work I do, and I still continue to love it, so you may be stuck with me for a while longer. And what was the other one? Oh, this change in oh my goodness, it's been amazing. When I first came to the campus, the Vietnam War was at its height. There were student protests all over the place. And I got involved in that to some extent. I also created a course, which is still being taught to this day, Philosophy and Current Issues. So there's been a huge change. Just a little story that you might find interesting. One of my students in political philosophy was asking me about, what I thought of the current tumult. And I said, well, you weren't here for the Vietnam War, so compared to what it was like then, things are fairly calm right now.
Let's give Dr. Becker a round of applause. Thank you. I'm going to shift you over. Now, you had the opportunity to hear a little bit from Roger on the decadal video just a moment ago, working in educational psychology, on teaching effectiveness and instructional effectiveness. Haven't put out any fires lately, have you? Just the birthday cake?
No, that's the only one. There hasn't been any. Hey, I wanted to clear something up, though. 50 years seems like an impossibly long time, but I actually arrived on campus in 1959 as a freshman.
Wow.
My mom and dad drove, I was in the back, they drove up in front of Selleck Quadrangle, and I went in Selleck Quadrangle, and I was pretty frightened with the classes, some of them, but I learned to love the place. Oh my gosh, so much to learn. So that's what I enjoyed.
So is there, in this area of teaching effectiveness and instructional effectiveness, what advice do you have for us in the future?
I think just there are people, I've learned in my projects by visiting a whole lot of departments, every one of our departments has such great people in it who are committed to teaching, and we can use them as a resource. In my research, I've gone, oh my gosh, that'd be a great question to ask as I've listened to people talk about their teaching.
Please join me in thanking Dr. Roger Bruner. Dr. Peterson has been in the mathematics department for many years, published 6 books, published or co-published 6 books, continues to be very productive, a Bessie professor. Which one of those books was your favorite?
Oh boy, probably sort of introduced a new area, which was called differential equations on timescales.
Do you remember what that talk was that you gave in 1968 when Robert Kennedy was here?
When Robert Kennedy was here, I actually was on my trip to Nebraska to interview for my job. And the professor, the reason I came here was we had this outstanding professor, Lloyd Jackson. And he just loved Bobby Kennedy. So I was so appreciative of the fact that he came to my talk. And so while I was talking, Bobby Kennedy was giving his talk over in the old Coliseum.
Puts it in perspective, doesn't it? Please thank Dr. Peterson. And Dr. Brad Radcliffe, entomologist in the State Museum, has worked with beetles in particular a lot through your life. Is there a favorite beetle you have out of those 62 species?
Well, I've described nearly 200 new species of insects, but I do not have a job. I have a passion. And so I can't pick any one favorite, no.
And I got to read his little banner he's wearing up here for him. It says, older than dirt. Please join me in thanking all of these wonderful 50-year recipients.
Let's have one final round of applause for all of you dedicated colleagues this morning. Well, that concludes our quick look back at the history behind our honored employees, but new pages in the history of the university are being written every day through the lives and the activities of our faculty and our staff and our students. How quickly the time passes. And we're all the better for the fact that you have chosen to spend your career, to spend your time here at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. My time is up. Thank you for yours, and my thanks to my UNL colleagues Annette Wetzel and Marcy Neiman for their help in getting the material together for our remarks this morning. And now with some thoughts to conclude the ceremony, please welcome again the Chancellor of the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, Ronnie Green.
Well, thank you very much, Rick. As always, Rick does such a wonderful job telling the story of the university, telling the history, being the voice in many ways. Mary Jane Bruce is that other one, that voice that we have from University Communications. Please thank him, our event staff, Nebraska Steel, for a wonderful celebration and ceremony this morning. Big round of applause for them. Now, I have just a few comments to make at the end before we invite you to lunch. And I hope these will be meaningful to each of you who are recipients today, in particular as service awardees. It's wonderful to see all of you here today across the university community in a time that we pause to celebrate our people in the day-to-day work and commitment of delivering on the trifold mission of one of America's great land-grant universities. We do not get, I don't think, or take maybe, enough opportunity to celebrate our people during the year. It's certainly warranted and it's certainly deserved. In reflecting on the significance of today, and I would say particularly in a time where it seems that institutions of all forms and types are increasingly questioned and challenged in our society. The image that comes to my mind is that this great institution, the University of Nebraska, has been one that has been defined by its people now for nearly 15 decades. I recall a statement made in this very room in 2016 when NU President Hank Bounds was installed as our system president, when he said that an institution wins first and foremost with its people. His words couldn't have been clearer or more on target at that time. That is how this university succeeds and how we will rise to even greater heights and levels of impact as we forge ahead into our next 150-year period of time. I go to bed every night and I wake up every morning thankful for our people. Each of our 6,117 employees across our 3 campuses here in Lincoln, spread throughout the 93 counties of this state from end to end, east to west, north to south. And especially this year, as we're anticipating our 150-year milestone in history, I'm respectful and thankful for the contributions of the legions of servants who built this place and on whose shoulders we stand today. And to borrow from comments that I made a little over a year ago, you are indeed the DNA of this great university, and through that, the DNA, I believe, of this great state. I know that we're celebrating this morning, particularly those who have hit the 5-year milestones that we've thought about the history of here in the last few minutes in your length of service. You saw the names as they were scrolling on the screens in front of you as you came in today. and you heard them represented so well by Dan, by Genevieve, by Dawn, by Rochelle, by Douglas, by Roger in the decadal video a few minutes ago. A total of 962 servant leaders, representing a total of 14,585 years of service to this institution, the flagship University of Nebraska. That is something to celebrate. Please give them all a round of applause. And I have to admit, I was a little bit awestruck looking at those names, both in terms of the flatness of the distribution, to borrow a statistician's term, or even the long tail of that distribution in how long people have served and stay at this university. It dawned on me that when we sing things like "There is no place like Nebraska," that it is in fact true. And in my own terms, it's so wonderful to relish and to personally see so many of those names that I've had the opportunity to be directly associated with in my 8 years here amongst you. I thank each and every one of you for your service, for your commitment to our mission, for your unending belief in the transformative power of higher education and knowledge generation, and most importantly, for your selfless dedication to excellence in what you specifically do and deliver for this university every day. Each person recognized in that list plays a key and integral role in delivering on our mission. From those who care for and manage our myriad of facilities and infrastructure, to those who manage our business operations, to those who work with our 25,820 students and 6,117 employees in their daily lives to ensure their safety, their well-being, and their success. To those who toil over recruiting, marketing, registration, records, financial management, student affairs and services, alumni relations, athletics, communications, marketing and transformation services, farm and research center operations, the myriad of research support systems that we have, grant specialists, funding development, legislative affairs, and certainly at our core, those who serve across our world-leading 9 academic colleges, centers, institutes, and innovation campus, either as faculty, directly in the classrooms, labs, fields, studios, museums, creative spaces, and translation through extension to our state, or in support of our pioneering faculty on a daily and hourly basis. I want to also especially recognize those who have retired in the past year from professional service with us in the university. In this time period, since July of 2017, we celebrated the retirement with 235 of our colleagues, including 40 who are now new emeriti faculty. Thanks to each of them for their service, and as they enter this next phase of their learning and contributions, we wish them the very best. Please give a round of applause to all of our retirees from this past year. And I also want to thank those who have just joined us this year, the newest members of our university community, including 145 new faculty and 560 new staff members who have joined us in this current year. We look forward to all of your work, to working with each of you, to seeing you here 5 years from now in your first service recognition in 2024. In closing, I'm immensely proud of this institution. I know that you all are as well. The flagship of higher education here in this state. It's defined by all of you. I want to leave you with a very simple kind of pictorial analogy, if you will. It came to me after really studying these names over the last couple of weeks, these lists of servants that we've recognized today. You've all heard of this maybe analogy of a city on a hill. It's a long-standing image that originally actually goes back to a biblical reference. A city on a hill that's made up of many points of light. We heard that in political terms over the last several decades. I would wager to you that that is a very fitting analogy for this institution, for it on an ongoing basis, where we have 6,117, you've heard that number now 3 times, lights. Maybe ours are shining bright red, or as Don Upstatter, my colleague in physics, might say, Diocles laser focused. But each of those lights shines bright every day and every hour in making the world a better place through our impact. I celebrate each of you today for being a critical one of those lights in sustained and real ways at a time, again, when the transformative power of what we do has never been more important, needed, required, and valuable. Now, I know you've heard these words that are on the stage a little bit over the last few weeks as we've launched this new brand platform, the words of grit and glory. Our new brand positioning statement couldn't close today's ceremonies better. And I'll read it to you to remind you of it before you see a little testimonial from your colleagues in this regard. We are Nebraska. We believe in the power of every person. We don't rest on our strengths. We stretch them, sweat them, combine them, growing flexible, nimble, and strong minds. That's how we do big things. Enjoy the video.
Don't fall asleep. Don't wait around.
We're waking up at 6:30 every morning.
Push through the music, push through the drill.
If you don't have that grit, you'll give up.
I don't forget.
You need to engage problems in ways that help people. It's really rewarding.
No key to get the success easily. You just work hard.
It was a hard year. I did a 14-month intensive program.
They take pride in their work, whatever it takes to make campus look good.
What about you?
I live it, breathe it, think it.
That's likely to bring.
For me, what makes Nebraska special is the people, humble but competitive.
I know the campus, I know the climate, I know what it strives for.
We've had setbacks and challenges, but this sister doesn't give up.
The graduation services staff are passionate about the work that they do.
On a complex project, sometimes we have to go back to the drawing board, but we work hard and we get it done.
We have 25,000 students on this campus and they all have grit.
Don't fall asleep. I don't forget.
Really anything's possible if you put your mind to it.
What I'm doing is really making a difference, so I just kept going.
And I tell my students I teach for free. They pay me to grade.
Go, Huskers!
Nothing gives me more joy to see a student really being successful.
At Nebraska, the intensity with which we challenge each other matches the goodwill in which we look out for one another.
Thank you for your service, for being here today. We have a picnic lunch. The rain didn't quite cooperate with us today, but the lunch is still there. So we would invite you to go to the Van Brunt Center, entering from the west side, to obtain lunch there, and thank you for your service. The people of the University of Nebraska are our greatest asset, and we thank each of you for being one of those. Thank you very much. We stand adjourned.